Are you ready to start our row by row quilt with our Accuquilt? I've tried to make it so that if you don't have an Accuquilt yet, you can still make it on your own. I'm going to put the measurements down below in the description. You can see behind me, I've made 5 stars for our first row. Now there's 3 different stars. As you look at them, as you look at your fabric and your designs, you can decide to use make just 1 style of star or 2, or do it like I did. I made 3 styles with the Lemoyne star in the middle. So I'm going to put up here a picture of the stars one at a time. And while the picture is up there, I am going to tell you about the star. So hopefully you're looking at the Sawtooth Star up there. And I'm going to tell you what I learned about the history of it. And I learned this on a website I'll tell you in a minute. It says this venerable star's name dates back to an 1884 issue of a magazine called Farm and Fireside, according to Jenny Byer's Quilter's Album. More than a dozen years later, the Ladies' Art Company called it the Evening Star Block. But the block generally goes by Sawtooth Star, which is what I had shown you in this publication that is called Quick and Easy Block Tool. So that's the history, a little bit of the history of the Sawtooth Star. It has a lot of names, but it's fun and it's easy. Okay, now our next star, hopefully it's right there, is Ribbon Star. Now the history of the Ribbon Star is also on my iPad. It says the Ladies' Art Company's Ribbon Star was published exactly as we're making it. The drawing quilters saw, originally the quilters thought they were odd-shaped pieces, like almost little envelopes in the corner. But once they put the 4 pieces together, they saw that it was a star, and it was named the Ribbon Star in 1897. So that was kind of a fun little tidbit. Okay, the next one, the Lemoyne Star. I'm hopefully putting up 2 pictures because one is when I laid it out to put it together. Now the Lemoyne Star was kind of interesting. It goes by different names, but it was first published in 1894 in the Ohio Farmer. It was named for 2 brothers who founded New Orleans in 1718, according to this book, Collector's Dictionary of Quilt Names and Patterns. It said English-speaking people renamed it the Lemon Star because they couldn't say Lemoyne, which was those gentlemen's last name. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. Okay, so those are our 3 stars. This is how they'll look all together. I'm hopefully putting it up there, but it's behind me. You can see that. And let's get started. First, I'm going to show you the cutting of the fabric because that's kind of important with this die. And you'll be so surprised how much you can get out of one 10-inch strip. Okay, I'm going to put that video in right now. Okay, let's cut some fabric. What I've done with my yellow here, I decided on the bright yellow instead of the light yellow that I showed you. I've pressed just the section that I think I'm going to cut. Now I'm going to cut about a hair over 10 inches. I have it just over my line that's 29 inches, and I have my slide lock ruler on 19 inches. So that should give me about 10 inches of fabric, and that should give me a good cut, a good amount. Now remember, when you're using a cutter, they want you to use, on most of the dies, the lengthwise bit of fabric. I was talking and not paying attention if it was cut or not. There we go. So lengthwise is with the selvage on one side. Lengthwise is like you cut a yard, it's the length of the yard. Widthwise is from selvage to selvage. I cut from selvage to selvage, but I'm going to use my die lengthwise. So now I've cleaned my die. Something maybe I didn't explain to you. My die is very old, like old, probably the originals, and has been used a lot, as you saw from my mat that I showed you before. So this, so I was given a suggestion to put just a piece of card over the top because the foam needs to push down better on an older die. So now the way I'm laying this out, do you see that the die is not straight with the edges of the die itself, the razor, the blade? But I want to make sure that my grain of fabric is with that. So I have selvages here, so I'm going over that, but I'm checking I'm at this corner and this corner, so I'll cover the whole thing. And what I want to do, what I usually do before I laid it on there, is measure 5 inches, because this needs about 5 inches, and you can figure it out as you go along what you need on yours. So I'm going to fold this over at the 5-inch mark, keeping in mind the selvage over there, keeping that proper slant. Ensure my corners are both covered. Now I'm going to show you this by folding my 10 inches over one time. I have 4 layers of fabric on this die. The rest of the fabric is just going to float along the back. You probably already know this, but I'm just saying this for those that maybe don't. I'm putting my blade on, my mat on the blades, and I'm putting my card on just because I want to make sure it really cuts on this particular die problem. The machine is doing all the work. Now, the moment of truth. There's always like a static electricity. It wants to, if you pick this straight up, everything comes flying, but you don't want everything to come flying. So I'm turning it like that. Got one of my little squares stuck to it, but you can see I can lift this off, and there are my cuts. Now, like I said, it's an older die, so sometimes there's just a tiny bit. This is real life. Tiny bit. 2 threads on this one. 1 and, okay, 3 threads. 3. But I have my half square triangles. And I have my 4 squares. And I have these 4 squares, which to stick 3 threads. Okay. So that one pass gave me 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5-inch squares. I got a little selvage on there. 8 half square triangles and 4 2.5-inch squares. Now you might think, well, I'm not going to use that many, but we will use them later. 1 10-inch strip. What I cut on my last few did 6. Well, I only did 6 4.5 by 4.5, 20 half-inch squares, and 10 2.5-inch squares, or 9 2.5-inch squares. So 1 strip will get you most of what you need for a couple of stars. Now you're looking and you're saying, look at that waste. But that's not really waste, because we're going to come back and use this, and that helps in the count of our half square triangles and our squares. So let's just cut that off for now and do another strip. Laying it on that angled line, just over, maybe a 1/4 inch or a hair over, so that it doesn't just slip down into the foam in the blade. Folding this in half, making sure the point is in there. Okay, I've got that all on there. Blade, my card, and I'm putting it through sideways. Uh-oh. I reversed out because it said there's okay, let's try that again. Maybe because I went sideways instead of straight. Like I said, this is real life. You might have a little, I have an electric one. When you're cranking, it won't automatically stop and reverse on you. Okay, so pull this off. Excuse me. Try and get the static off and push down and swirl it. And now I have again my squares, which didn't need to be extra trimmed. So now I have 8 of those. I have 8 more of the half square triangles. And 4 more 2.5 inch squares. So, like I said, this isn't waste. Let's trim that out. I have this big piece left. Now this is not wide enough for the 4.5 inch square. Just gently rubbing some of that off. This is where this comes in. Good. Just a gentle swipe. We don't want to rub against the blades and make them dull. You just want to get the fabric out of the slots. So this one, this last piece won't fit over the 4.5 inch. Well, yeah, it won't make a 4.5 inch, but it will do some more of these. So if I fold this in half, not quite there. Let's see if I bring it down just a pinch. I think I've got it. So let's run that piece through. Let's use the mat this time. See if what I told you is true. Few little threads want to stick. There's 1, 2, and they all came off, and 4 more half square triangles. These are kind of valuable because when you want to make a star, you need a ton of these little half square triangles. So we still have some pieces big enough to do something. So let me, what I'm doing is I'm cutting off these little bits and just letting it drop into the trash. So that's your waste on one piece. There's not much waste. People say, oh, Accuquilt, it wastes so much fabric. I have not found that to be true. And the fun of using it and the benefits for me of using it are so much more than to worry about these little bits of fabric. Bear with me. We're going to get a final count so you can see how we're going to use every little bit of fabric. So now we have 1, 2. That one's a little skinny. We'll have to pay attention to him. 3 T's. Let's see. Trying to get it where you can see what I'm doing. The widest spot, yes, even this skinny tee will fit over a half square triangle. And the skinny one won't make a full square, but it will make 2 half square triangles. So let's put those 4 through and see what we've got. We have 8 more half square triangles and 2 more squares because these 2 weren't big enough for squares. But that doesn't mean they're not big enough to save for something else. Now I'm gonna get these off of here. I like to save these long strips, even though it's only about 3/4 inch wide. Sometimes in a funky quilt, you want to have a long strip. That one's too skinny. Let's do this one. This one. So I can clean those up later. But you see what I mean, that we use every little bit of scrap. So now out of that 10-inch strip of fabric, which is just a little more than a 1/4 yard, let's say a 30 yard. If it was a full third, you get many more. Let's count these. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, there's 10. And there's 10. We got a lot out of these. So I have 27 of those half square triangles. Now those will go a long way to making a star or a pinwheel row, whatever. So we're saving the ones that we're not using today on this top row. A bunch of squares. So I had on that last piece I cut, which maybe it was a little shorter, narrower piece of fabric. I only got 23 half square triangles and 9 squares. So I got a bunch of squares. Anyway, you get the point. So that's how we are cutting for our stars. Now I'm going to, I've already put up how many half square triangles you need for each star. So we will finish the row and come back and talk some more. So I have cut all of my fabrics in 10-inch strips. So I'm going to get that much out of each fabric, as I said on that video. And I have them stored in my cookie box. So they're all handy. And don't you worry, we are going to use them, most of them anyway, even if it's just checkerboards as a border or it's an in-between row. But now that you have it all cut out, I want you to go back to the diagram, and maybe I'll put the diagrams back up here, and you can pause the video and lay it out for sewing. Now I laid them out and I made all the half square triangles at once in chain piecing. Now I'm not assuming you're brand new at sewing and brand new at quilting. So you know how to sew half square triangles together, but the beauty of them being cut with the Accuquilt is that they are so perfectly cut that when you lay them together, of course, right sides together, they match up exactly. And this point here, let me get it up here where you can see, is just about at the 1/4 inch mark. Now on my sewing machine, I have a tape, a washi tape, that has an exact 1/4 inch on each side of the red line where the needle goes. So I follow that. Just make sure when you're doing it, you have a flat foot on your machine, 1/4 inch foot, or any foot, as long as you can follow the 1/4 inch line on your table. So you make sure these are cut so perfectly that if there's any mistake, it's because of your being off the line a little bit. So make sure you get it a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then when you get your stack done of all your half square triangles you need, go over to the ironing board. And I would recommend you iron them 1 star at a time. And I have some ironing directions in this next little video. Okay, that didn't work. Apparently I lost the video that I took of me pressing, but what I felt was important when you're pressing the Sawtooth Star, press half of them to the dark and half of them to the light, because that way you won't have so much bulk in your seams. So as you're laying it out, you lay it out 1 to the light and 1 to the dark, and you can look at my picture and you can kind of see the shadow of where the seam goes. If you don't see a seam in the background, that's to the dark. If you see the seam, that one was pressed to the light. I'm sorry I don't have the video up of when I was doing it to show it to you. The other thing is when you're pressing, maybe I did say this, when you press the Lemoyne Star and the other one with the 4 in the middle, press your seam open. Okay, I'm going to show you the next. The video that I did save of ironing, you can watch it or fast forward through it. I'm really sorry. Hi, I'm back at the ironing table to iron my bits for the Lemoyne Star. Now, as we talked about, some should be open and some should be closed because it really does help when you're constructing it. But I couldn't remember how to say I did it. It's not half and half because there's different color with color, print with print. So I'm using my ribbon star as a pattern to let me know this one here needs to go that way, and you can see in here which way I have pressed to the light or to the dark. So use your ribbon star as a guide how you're going to do it, light and dark, and then put them where they're going to go at the top so that you can know why you pressed it that way. And then I'll just carry my mat over to my sewing machine and put them together from there. But that's just a tip. I have another thing to tell you. Sometimes when I tape myself at the ironing board, people see my bottle here. Well, this bottle is here because I refill my spray bottles that I have bought in the past with 1 cup water and 1 cup potato-based vodka and use it as a starch, and it works as good as anything I've bought. I feel like it works better. Maybe that's just because I'm used to it. That's why you might see in pictures of my sewing room a bottle of vodka in the background. Sorry about that. And sometimes if you want to squirt your sewing water to give you a little relaxation, that works too. Just kidding. Okay, that's my ironing tip on the Lemoyne Star. Okay, now that you've got them all sewn together and all pressed, now make your stars. Do 2 sawtooth at one time, the ribbon star at another time, your Lemoyne after it or before, whatever, but just have one star right to your left at one time, or your right, however you set your quilt blocks up. So you've got it. I sewed row to row to row. On the Sawtooth, I did the top row, then I did the two side together and did the middle row, and then did the bottom row. I finger pressed the seams to opposite sides as I came across, and then added the final row and finger pressed those seams to the side, and then went over to the ironing board and ironed them. And you want to just iron it out real nice. When it comes to the Lemoyne star, well, and the same thing with the ribbon star, you have 4 half square triangles together in the middle. So when I put those rows together, I recommend you iron the seam open on that middle 2 rows, that middle one, because you've got that big batch of seams, fabric right in the middle, and you don't want it to be all bunched up. So just fold and just kind of press it with the point of your iron till you get it flat there, and then turn it over and just press it all. Because as you see on the wall behind, when we get to our strip cutting, I think we'll add a 2.5-inch strip in between each one. It'll kind of spread it out a little bit, but also make it look more like the stars are floating, which is the look I'm kind of going for, because we're doing row by row. We're not trying to make secondary patterns. Okay, have fun. Make your stars. If you have any question, I'll put the print of how many you need to cut for each one star. And you can follow that and then follow the video guide, the pictures that I'm going to put up on the video. Anything else I need to say? No, I think we're good. If you have any questions, you can email me at annettsneedles@gmail.com, or DM me on Instagram. I'm Annette's Needles on Instagram, and I'll try to talk you through it, or we can have a video call or something, and you can get some extra help. I'm happy to help you. Okay, enjoy, and I'd love to see you post a picture of what you've done on Instagram, and you can hashtag it row by row with Accuquilt. Row by row, WITH, ACCUQUILT. And I'll do the same thing. Okay. Thanks for watching. Make something beautiful. Bye.